6 months after the Confederation's surrender, the galaxy was a very different place. The once mighty alliance of alien species that had ruled 300 star systems for thousands of years now gathered in the ruins of their former capital. Whirled to face a reality none of them had imagined possible. Ambassador Kethvar, the same being who had first dismissed humanity as a primitive curiosity, now sat across a negotiation table from Admiral Jake Morrison. The human had been promoted from captain after Earth's victory, but more importantly, he now represented the newest and most feared power in known space. "The terms are non-negotiable," Morrison said, sliding a datapad across the table. His voice was calm and professional, but Kethvar could hear the steel underneath. Full recognition of human sovereignty over our claimed territories, reparations for the unprovoked attack on our system, and establishment of formal diplomatic protocols. Kethvar's 4 hands trembled as he read through the document. "Admiral Morrison, these terms are generous considering the circumstances." "Generous?" Morrison raised an eyebrow. "Ambassador, you attacked our civilians. You tried to commit genocide against our entire species. The fact that you're still alive to negotiate is the generous part." Around the table, representatives from all 12 Confederation species sat in stunned silence. 6 months ago, they had been the undisputed masters of the galaxy. Now they were trying to negotiate the survival of their civilizations with a species they had dismissed as primitives. Fleet Master Korthval, who had requested to attend the negotiations despite his military disgrace, spoke up. "Admiral, what assurance do we have that humanity will honor these agreements?" Morrison looked at him with an expression that might have been amusement. "Fleet Master, what assurance do you need? We could have exterminated your species entirely. Instead, we're offering you a chance to coexist peacefully. But for how long? Your people have shown a remarkable capacity for adaptation. What happens when you decide our continued existence is inconvenient?" "That," Morrison said quietly, "depends entirely on whether you give us a reason to consider you inconvenient." The transformation of human capabilities had been staggering to observe. Dr. Amy Foster, now Director of Interspecies Research, had established facilities on a dozen former Confederation worlds. Her teams were not just studying alien technology, they were improving it at a rate that made even human scientists uncomfortable. "The quantum fold drives are now 60% more efficient than the original Confederation designs," she reported to President Rodriguez during their weekly briefing. "Our shipyards are producing vessels that are superior to anything in their former fleet." "How superior?" Rodriguez asked. "Sir, a single human battleship could now defeat 10 Confederation vessels of similar size. We've integrated their technology with our tactical doctrine in ways they never imagined." But the technological revolution was only part of the story. Chief Engineer Tony Davis had established what he called improvement facilities throughout human space. These weren't just factories. They were think tanks where human engineers took alien technology apart and rebuilt it according to human principles. "The thing is," Tony explained to his wife during one of his rare trips home to Earth, "they spent thousands of years perfecting their technology to do exactly what it was designed to do. We spend a few months figuring out how to make it do things they never thought of." The psychological impact on the former Confederation was equally profound. Commander Sarah Mitchell, now head of Human Intelligence Services, monitored alien communications and found a galaxy in cultural shock. "They're calling us the mad species," she reported with some amusement. Their historians are trying to understand how we developed such advanced warfare techniques without superior technology. And what are they concluding? That we're fundamentally different from every other intelligent species they've encountered. They're starting to think that maybe intelligence isn't the same thing as wisdom. The truth was simpler and more terrifying than the aliens realized. Humanity hadn't become suddenly brilliant at warfare. They had always been brilliant at it. The Confederation had simply never encountered a species that had spent its entire evolutionary history fighting wars against enemies with superior individual capabilities. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Clark, now commanding a sector of space larger than the entire former Confederation capital system, often reflected on this during his patrols. Humans had learned to win wars against stronger opponents because they had been doing it for millennia, first against predators that were faster and stronger, then against other humans with better weapons or larger armies. The aliens never had to learn how to fight dirty, he explained to his crew during a training exercise. They never had to learn how to adapt, how to improvise, how to win when everything was against them. They just built bigger guns and assumed that was enough. President Rodriguez, now addressing a gathering of former Confederation leaders, made the same point in more diplomatic terms. We understand that our methods of warfare may seem unconventional to you, but you must understand that humanity has never had the luxury of technological superiority. We learned to win wars with whatever tools we had available. And now that you have our tools, asked the representative from the Delph species, now we use them the way humans use tools. Rodriguez replied, we make them better. The establishment of human-controlled space had been swift and decisive. Captain Ben Harris, promoted to admiral and given command of the outer territories, oversaw the integration of former Confederation worlds into what was now called the Human Systems Alliance. The interesting thing, he reported to Earth Command, is that most of the conquered species are actually relieved to be under our protection. The Confederation ruled through fear and technology. We're ruling through competence and the promise of mutual benefit. This was true. Species that had been client states of the Confederation found themselves with more autonomy under human rule than they had enjoyed in centuries. Humans, it turned out, were much more interested in cooperation than domination. Dr. Foster's integration programs were helping former Confederation species adapt to the new reality. We're not trying to replace their cultures, she explained, to a gathering of alien representatives. We're trying to help them understand how to coexist with a species that thinks differently than they do. And how do humans think differently? Asked Ambassador Kethvar. We think in terms of problems to be solved rather than situations to be endured. When you showed us superior technology, our first thought wasn't, we can't compete with that. It was, how do we beat that? The final negotiations took place on Earth itself, in the same chamber where President Rodriguez had first authorized resistance to the Confederation. The irony was not lost on anyone present. Admiral Morrison stood before the assembled alien representatives, many of whom had been present when Commander Zixtal had delivered his ultimatum months earlier. 6 months ago, you offered us a choice between submission and extinction. You believed that superior technology made victory inevitable. You were wrong. He gestured to a display showing the current state of the galaxy. Today, humanity controls or protects over 400 star systems. Our technology is superior to anything you ever developed. Our military is unmatched in known space. The aliens listened in stunned silence. But, Morrison continued, we're not interested in conquest for its own sake. We're interested in making sure that what you tried to do to us never happens to. The stars had never seemed so bright as they did on that Tuesday morning when everything changed. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Earth vessel Horizon, watching his screen show something that made his heart race. 12 massive ships hung in space near Jupiter, each one bigger than anything humans had ever built. "Sir, they're sending a message," said Lieutenant Amy Foster from her station. Her voice shook just a little, but Jake couldn't blame her. This was the moment every human had dreamed about and feared at the same time. The main screen flickered to life, showing a tall, green-scaled creature with 4 arms and eyes that glowed like amber gems. When it spoke, the words came through, perfectly clear, as if it had been speaking English its whole life. "I am Ambassador Kethvar of the Zephyrian Confederation. We have come to speak with the leaders of this world you call Earth." Jake straightened his uniform and stepped forward. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. Welcome to our solar system, Ambassador. We're honored to meet you." The alien's mouth twisted into what might have been a smile, but it didn't look friendly. "How quaint. Your species still uses individual names and crude metal ships. We have been watching your world for some time. Little human, your technology is quite primitive." Behind the ambassador, Jake could see other aliens. Some looked like giant insects with too many legs. Others had blue skin and tentacles where humans had arms. All of them seemed to be looking at the human ship like it was a toy. "We may not have your advanced technology," Jake said carefully, "but we're a peaceful people. We'd like to learn from each other and maybe become friends." This made several of the aliens make sounds that the translator picked up as laughter. Ambassador Kethvar held up one of his 4 hands. "Friends? Oh, small creature, you misunderstand your situation entirely. We are the Zephyrian Confederation. We rule over 300 star systems and 47 different species. We do not make friends with primitive worlds. We offer protection." "Protection from what?" Jake asked. "From us," Kethvar said simply. "Your world has 2 choices, human. You can accept our guidance and become what we call a client species. You will give us your resources and we will keep you safe. Or what? Or we will take what we need anyway, and your people will not enjoy the process." Jake felt his jaw tighten. He'd been in the military for 20 years, and he knew a threat when he heard one. "Ambassador, I think you should know that humans don't respond well to threats. We prefer to talk things through, but we can defend ourselves if we need to." The laughter from the alien ship was so loud that the speakers crackled. Even Ambassador Kethvar seemed to find this hilarious. "Defend yourselves? With what? We have studied your weapons, human Morrison. You still use chemical explosives and metal projectiles. Your fastest ships take months to travel between your own planets. Your most powerful weapons could barely scratch the paint on our smallest escort vessel." "Maybe," Jake said, "but we're tougher than we look." "Are you indeed?" Kethvar leaned forward, his glowing eyes fixed on Jake. "Tell me, Captain Morrison, how many wars has your species fought?" "Too many to count." "And how many have you won against enemies with superior technology?" Jake thought about that for a moment. "Most of them." This seemed to amuse the ambassador even more. "Impossible. Superior technology always wins. It is a law of the universe." "Not on Earth, it doesn't. We've learned that the side with the best technology doesn't always win. Sometimes it's the side that wants it more, or the side that's willing to do whatever it takes." "How wonderfully naive," Kethvar said. "You speak as if determination and, what do you call it? Willpower as if these things matter against plasma cannons and quantum shields. From her station, Lieutenant Foster spoke up. "Sir, I'm getting readings from their ships. They're scanning us." Ambassador Kethvar nodded. "Yes, we are cataloging your quaint little vessel. We find it fascinating that your species still uses such crude materials. Steel and aluminum? How charming. Our ships are made from materials your scientists haven't even discovered yet." "I'm sure they are," Jake said. "But sometimes the simple things work better than the complicated ones." "Do they? How interesting." "Well, Captain Morrison, we have learned everything we need to know about your species today. We will return to our council and discuss what to do with your world. I suggest you use this time to prepare your leaders for the inevitable." "And what should we tell them?" "Tell them that the Zephyrian Confederation has found Earth. Tell them that resistance is not only futile, but amusing. Tell them that in 30 of your days we will return for their answer." The screen went dark, leaving Jake and his crew alone, with the stars and the massive alien ships that hung in space like a promise of things to come. "Sir," Lieutenant Foster said quietly, "should I send a message to Earth Command?" "Yes," Jake said. "Tell them we've made first contact. Tell them the aliens want us to surrender, and tell them—" He paused, looking at the alien ships through the bridge windows. "Tell them we might want to dust off some of those old military history books. Sir, the ones about fighting enemies who thought they couldn't lose." As the horizon turned toward Earth, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that Ambassador Kethvar had made a mistake. The alien had assumed that superior technology meant automatic victory, but Jake remembered his grandfather's stories about World War II, about Vietnam, about all the times in history when the side with better weapons had learned the hard way that humans didn't give up easy. The aliens thought they knew everything about humanity, from scanning one ship and reading some old radio signals. They thought humans were just another primitive species to be conquered and controlled. Jake hoped they'd figure out their mistake before it was too late for everyone involved. But deep down, he had a feeling that the Zephyrian Confederation was about to learn something new about the universe. They were about to learn what happened when you made humans angry. 3 months had passed since the first meeting with the aliens, and Earth had not been sitting still. In the deep underground bunkers beneath Colorado, President Alex Rodriguez sat at a table surrounded by the most important people on the planet. General Pete Williams, a man who had seen combat on 3 different continents, drummed his fingers on the metal table. Admiral Lisa Carter, whose gray hair and sharp eyes had earned respect from every sailor in the fleet, studied reports that made her frown deeper with each page. "They're back," said Dr. Amy Foster, who had been promoted to head of xenobiology after the first contact. She pointed to the screens showing space around Earth. 15 ships this time, all bigger than what we saw before. The main screen flickered, and Commander Zixtal appeared. This alien looked different from Ambassador Kethvar. Where the ambassador had seemed almost polite in his arrogance, this creature radiated pure menace. Its skin was black as space, and when it spoke, its voice sounded like grinding metal. "Humans of Earth, I am Commander Zixtal of the Confederation War Fleet. Your time for consideration is over." "What is your answer?" President Rodriguez stood up slowly. He was a tall man, with kind eyes, but those eyes were hard as steel now. "Commander, we've thought about your offer very carefully. Our answer is no. We will not surrender our freedom to you or anyone else." The alien's face twisted into something that might have been surprise. "You refuse? This is unexpected." Are you certain you understand the consequences of defying the Confederation? We understand perfectly, Rodriguez said. We also understand that every free species in the galaxy probably faced the same choice we're facing now. We choose to remain free. Zixtal made a sound like static. Your species continues to amuse us with its ignorance. Very well. Since you insist on learning the hard way, let me explain what will happen next. The screen changed to show a massive fleet of ships hanging in dark space. There were hundreds of them, each one bristling with weapons that glowed with deadly energy. This is Battle Fleet 7, Zixtal continued. 200 capital ships, 50,000 warriors, enough firepower to turn your planet's surface into molten glass. They will arrive in 30 days. When they do, they will destroy your military installations, capture your leaders, and begin the process of integrating your world into the Confederation. General Williams leaned forward. And if we resist, then you will die. All of you. Your species will become extinct, and your world will be given to a more cooperative species. Admiral Carter spoke up. Commander, you should know that humans have a long history of fighting against impossible odds. We don't give up easy. This seemed to entertain Zixtal greatly. Admiral Carter, is it? We have studied your military history. You fight wars with projectile weapons and chemical explosives. Your tactics are crude, your technology primitive. You could not even reach your own moon without using multiple rocket stages. How exactly do you plan to fight ships that can destroy planets? We'll figure something out, Carter said quietly. We always do. Will you indeed? Let me share something with you, Admiral. In the 3,000 years that the Confederation has existed, over 2 million species have faced the choice your world faces now. Do you know how many chose to resist? How many? Rodriguez asked. Exactly 0. Every intelligent species in the galaxy understands that resistance to superior technology is suicide. You are the first to be foolish enough to try. Dr. Foster had been quiet during the exchange, but now she spoke up. Commander, can I ask you something? Speak, scientist. Have you ever fought a war that lasted more than a few days? Zixtal paused. What relevance does this question have? Just curious. I mean, if every species surrenders immediately, you probably haven't had much practice at actual warfare, have you? The alien's voice turned cold. We do not need practice. At warfare, human, we have superior technology. The outcome is predetermined. That's what the British thought in 1776, Foster said. That's what the Germans thought in 1941. That's what every empire in history thought right before it fell. Your historical references are meaningless. None of those conflicts involved the technological disparity that exists between your species and ours. Rodriguez stepped forward again. Commander, let me make something clear. We don't want this war. We'd prefer to live in peace with the Confederation. But if you insist on attacking us, you're going to find out something about humans that your databases probably don't mention. And what is that? We're really, really good at fighting dirty. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the room in silence. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then General Williams let out a low whistle. Well, that could have gone better. Could have gone worse, too, Admiral Carter said. At least now we know what we're dealing with. 200 ships, 50,000 troops. 30 days to prepare. Dr. Foster pulled up a different screen, showing orbital patterns around Earth. I've been analyzing their ship movements since they arrived. They're not being particularly careful about hiding their positions or their scan patterns. It's like they don't think we're capable of learning anything useful from watching them. Are we? Rodriguez asked. Maybe. See, they're assuming we're going to fight like every other species they've conquered. Stand-up battles, ship to ship, conventional tactics. But what if we don't? General Williams grinned. What if we fight like humans instead? Exactly. They've studied our history, but they don't understand it. They see our wars as primitive because we used simple weapons. They don't see that we won those wars because we were willing to do whatever it took. Admiral Carter was already thinking ahead. We need to start evacuating the civilian populations from the major cities, move them to smaller towns, rural areas, places that are harder to target from space. They'll think we're running scared, Williams said. Good. Let them think that. The longer they underestimate us, the better our chances. Rodriguez looked around the table. Are we really going to do this? Are we really going to fight a war against aliens with technology we can't even understand? Mr. President, Carter said, my grandfather fought in World War II. He used to tell me stories about facing down German panzers with nothing but determination and a bazooka. He said the most dangerous enemy was the one who thought he'd already won. And those German tank crews thought their armor was invincible too. Dr. Foster brought up another screen, this one showing communication intercepts from the alien fleet. Sir, I've been monitoring their transmissions. They're not even using encryption. They don't think we're smart enough to understand their language. Are we? Give me another week and I'll be reading their grocery lists. Rodriguez nodded slowly. All right then. Admiral Carter, begin implementing defensive protocols. General Williams, start moving our assets to secondary positions. Dr. Foster, keep listening to everything they say. And remember, everyone, sir, we've got 30 days to figure out how to win a war that everyone in the galaxy thinks is impossible to win. As the meeting broke up, each person left with their own thoughts about the impossible task ahead. But if any of them had been watching the alien ships orbiting high above Earth, they might have noticed something interesting. The aliens weren't watching the human military bases or the government buildings. They weren't even watching the cities where most people lived. They were watching the museums and the libraries, trying to understand human history. If they had understood what they were reading, they might have left Earth alone. But they didn't understand. And that was going to be their first mistake. War Prime Thackmore stood in the command center of his flagship, looking at the tactical display showing the human solar system. Around him, his officers prepared for what they all assumed would be the shortest military campaign in Confederation history. The massive alien was covered in thick gray hide that could stop most projectile weapons, and his 4 eyes glowed red with confidence. Intelligence Report Velneth, he commanded. Intelligence Officer Velneth, a tall creature with blue skin and tentacles for arms, touched her control panel. The humans continue their amusing preparations, War Prime. They are evacuating their population centers and moving their primitive spacecraft to what they believe are hidden locations. Hidden? Thackmore's voice rumbled with laughter. Our sensors can detect their metal ships from 3 star systems away. What do they think they are hiding from? It appears they believe their crude stealth technology will work against our detection systems. They have also been sending encrypted messages. Between their military installations, have you broken their encryption? War Prime, their encryption is so primitive that our computers decoded it before I finished asking the question. They are discussing something they call asymmetric warfare and guerrilla tactics. Apparently, they plan to use small attacks against our fleet instead of meeting us in proper battle. This caused several of Thackmore's officers to make the chittering sound that served as Confederation laughter. Battle leader Corks, whose insect-like appearance made humans think of praying. Mantises spoke up. They plan to annoy us to death, perhaps? Their largest weapons could not penetrate even our scout ship's shields. War Prime, said another officer, this one from the aquatic Delph species. Perhaps we should send fewer ships. It seems wasteful to use an entire battle fleet against such a weak opponent. Thakmor considered this. No. The Council wants this conquest to be visible to other species who might consider resistance. We will use the full fleet to ensure the lesson is clear. Defying the Confederation leads to complete destruction. Meanwhile, on Earth, Colonel Dan Murphy was having a very different kind of meeting. Deep in a mountain bunker on Mars, he was talking to defense coordinators from across the solar system via quantum communication links that the aliens hadn't figured out how to detect yet. "Status report from Europa Station," came a voice from the speakers. "All civilian evacuations complete," replied Commander Betty Shaw from the Ice Moon. "Military personnel have been moved to the underground facilities. Surface installations are rigged for demolition." "Mars colony reporting," said another voice. "We've moved everything that matters to the lava tube complexes. The aliens think we're still using the surface domes." Murphy nodded. "Excellent. Remember, people, the goal isn't to win a stand-up fight. The goal is to make them think they're fighting a different war than the one we're actually fighting." On the main alien ship, Velneth was reporting something puzzling to War Prime Thakmor. "Sir, the humans have done something strange. They appear to have abandoned many of their military installations. Our long-range scans show the bases are empty." "Empty? Where did they go?" "Unknown. War Prime. They seem to have simply disappeared." Thakmor's red eyes narrowed. "No military force simply disappears. They must be hiding somewhere. Have you checked underground?" "Our scans show some activity in natural cave systems and mining tunnels, but nothing that appears to be military in nature. The energy signatures are too small to represent significant forces. Then they are probably civilians hiding from our arrival. The military forces must be gathered elsewhere for a final battle." Battle Leader Corks leaned forward. "War Prime, what if they have actually abandoned their military entirely? What if they plan to surrender without fighting?" "Possible," Thakmor mused. "It would be the intelligent thing to do. Perhaps they realized the futility of resistance after we showed them our fleet." Back on Earth, Dr. Amy Foster was listening to these conversations with great interest. Her translation programs had completely cracked the alien language within a week, just as she had promised. What she was hearing made her smile. "Admiral Carter," she said into her communicator, "you need to hear this." In his hidden command post, buried deep under the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Carter put on his headphones. "What am I listening to, Doctor?" "This is from their flagship, recorded about an hour ago." Carter listened to the translated conversation between Thakmor and his officers. When it ended, he was grinning. "They think we've given up?" "That's not the best part," Foster said. "The best part is that they're not even trying to find us anymore. They've decided we're either hiding civilians or gathering for one big final battle. They've stopped actively scanning for military installations. Which means they have no idea that we've built 50 new bases in the last 3 months, or that we've moved our entire fleet to positions they don't know about, or that we've been manufacturing weapons specifically designed to fight their technology." Carter leaned back in his chair. "Doctor, remind me to recommend you for a promotion when this is over. If we're still alive when this is over, I'll take it." On the alien flagship, War Prime Thakmor was getting reports from his scout ships. The human homeworld appears to be preparing for siege. War Prime, reported Scout Leader Vex. They have stockpiled supplies in their cities and are building what appear to be defensive barriers around important buildings. Defensive barriers? Thakmor laughed. What do they think they are defending against? Our plasma cannons will turn their strongest walls into vapor. Perhaps they do not understand the power of our weapons, suggested Velneth. Of course they do not. How could they? They have never seen real warfare. Their idea of a powerful weapon is a chemical explosive that can destroy a building. They cannot conceive of weapons that can crack planets. What Thakmor didn't know was that the defensive barriers his scouts had observed were actually carefully constructed decoys, designed to look like desperate defensive measures while hiding the real preparations happening underground. Tony Davis, Earth's chief engineer, was in his element. Deep beneath the surface of the moon, he was overseeing the construction of what he privately called the surprise party. "How many more can we get finished before they arrive?" asked his assistant, Karen Bell. "At current production rates, maybe 200 more. Not as many as I'd like, but it should be enough for Phase 1. And if it's not enough?" Tony grinned. "Then we go to Phase 2. And trust me, they're really not going to like Phase 2. Above them, on the lunar surface, carefully disguised installations that looked like mining equipment to alien sensors were actually production facilities working around the clock. The aliens had cataloged them as primitive resource extraction and ignored them completely. As the Confederation fleet moved closer to Earth, War Prime Thakmor felt confident about the coming battle. His intelligence reports told him that the humans were behaving exactly as expected, hiding in fear, building useless defenses, and preparing for a hopeless last stand. "War Prime," said Velneth, "I have been analyzing human military history, as you requested. I believe I understand their strategy." "Explain." "They appear to be planning what they call a Alamo defense, a reference to a historical battle where a small force held a position against overwhelming odds until they were all killed. It seems they plan to die gloriously rather than surrender." "How predictably primitive. Very well. We will grant them their glorious death. Begin final approach to their system. All ships, combat readiness level 1. As the alien fleet accelerated toward Earth, Thakmor stood looking at the tactical display, already planning how he would report this easy victory to the Council. What he didn't notice was that several of the asteroids in the belt they were passing through had started moving in ways that asteroids shouldn't move, and deep in his hidden bunker, Admiral Carter was watching those same asteroids on his own display, counting down the hours until the Confederation learned their first lesson about fighting humans. "All stations," he said quietly into his communicator. "The guests are almost here. Time to show them how we throw a party." The Confederation fleet arrived at Earth with all the ceremony and confidence of conquerors who had never known defeat. War Prime Thakmor stood on his command bridge, watching the blue-green planet grow larger on his screens. Around him, 200 of the most advanced warships in the galaxy prepared for what their computers calculated would be a 4-hour battle. "All ships report ready for combat operations," announced Battle Leader Korks. "Targeting systems have identified 17 major population centers and 43 military installations. Begin with the military targets," Thakmor ordered. "Demonstrate our power, then offer them one final chance to surrender before we target the civilians." "War Prime," Intelligence Officer Velneth interrupted. "Our sensors are detecting unusual readings from several human installations. The energy signatures are strange." "Strange how?" "They appear to be much more powerful than our estimates suggested. Some of these facilities are generating energy levels comparable to our own secondary systems. Thakmor dismissed this with a wave of his massive hand. Sensor malfunction. Their technology is centuries behind ours. Begin the attack. The first salvo from the Confederation fleet lit up space like a second sun. Plasma beams and quantum torpedoes streaked toward Earth, targeting what the aliens believed were humanity's most important military bases. The weapons struck with tremendous force, vaporizing buildings and turning landscapes into seas of molten glass. "Direct hits on all targets," reported the weapons officer. "The human installations have been completely destroyed." "Excellent. Now, target their spacecraft. Show them that resistance is futile." But as the second wave of attacks began, something unexpected happened. The human ships that the aliens had been tracking suddenly disappeared from their sensors. "Where did they go?" Thakmor demanded. "Unknown, War Prime. They were there a moment ago, and now, nothing." What the aliens didn't know was that the installations they had destroyed were elaborate decoys, filled with equipment designed to generate fake energy signatures and blow up spectacularly when hit. The real human military bases were buried deep, underground or hidden inside asteroids that the Confederation had dismissed as worthless space rocks. Captain Ben Harris crouched in the command center of Asteroid Base Alpha, watching his screens as the alien fleet celebrated what they thought was a victory. Around him, his crew prepared for what would either be the most brilliant surprise attack in human history or a glorious suicide mission. "All ships report ready," whispered his communications officer, Lieutenant Dave Kim. "The aliens still don't know we're here." "Good. Remember, people, we only get one chance at this. Once we attack, they'll know where we are, so make it count." Harris looked at his tactical display. 50 small human ships were hidden inside asteroids that the aliens had been flying past for the last hour. Each ship was tiny compared to the massive Confederation vessels, but they had two advantages. The aliens didn't know they existed, and they were armed with weapons specifically designed to exploit weaknesses that Dr. Foster's team had identified in alien technology. "All ships," Harris said quietly. "This is Wolf Leader. Execute surprise party in 3, 2, 1. Mark." 50 asteroids suddenly exploded outward, revealing the human ships hidden inside. But instead of attacking the alien fleet directly, they did something that caught the Confederation completely off guard. They scattered in 50 different directions, each ship heading for a different target at maximum speed. "What are they doing?" Thakmor roared as alarms began sounding throughout his ship. "Where did those ships come from?" "Unknown, War Prime. They appear to have been hidden inside the asteroids. Our sensors classified those rocks as natural debris. The human ships were small and fast, too small for the Confederation's main weapons to target effectively. Designed for fighting large enemy fleets, the alien weapons were like using cannons to shoot at flies. By the time the gunners could track one human ship, it had already changed course and was attacking from a different angle. "They're targeting our sensor arrays," Battle Leader Corks reported, "and our communication relays." This was no accident. Dr. Foster's analysis of alien technology had revealed that the Confederation ships were designed to work together as a coordinated fleet. Disrupt their ability to communicate and share sensor data, and they became much less effective. Captain Ben Harris piloted his ship in a wild spiral around a Confederation cruiser, firing precisely targeted bursts at the alien vessel's communication. Equipment. Behind him, Lieutenant Kim was coordinating with the other human ships. Wolf 7 reports successful hit on target's main sensor array. Wolf 12 has taken out a command ship's communications. Wolf 3 is... Oh no. What happened? To Wolf 3? Direct hit, sir. The ship is gone. Harris felt his jaw tighten. They had known this would be costly, but knowing and experiencing were two different things. Acknowledged. All ships, continue the mission. Make their sacrifice count. On the alien flagship, chaos was spreading like a virus. Ships that had operated in perfect coordination for centuries suddenly found themselves isolated, unable to communicate with their fleet mates or share targeting data. How many of these pest ships are there? Thakmor demanded. Sensors show approximately 50 small craft. But, sir, they keep disappearing and reappearing. We think they're using some kind of stealth technology. Impossible! Their technology is primitive. What the aliens didn't realize was that the humans weren't using advanced stealth technology at all. They were using something much simpler. Tactics. The human ships would attack, then dive behind asteroids or space debris, breaking sensor lock. When they emerged to attack again, the alien targeting computers had to start tracking them all over. Again! War Prime! Velneth called out. I'm receiving reports from across the fleet. These small ships are causing significant damage to our secondary systems. Secondary systems? What about hull damage? Minimal hull damage, sir, but they're not trying to destroy our ships. They're trying to blind and deafen us. For the first time since arriving at Earth, Thakmor felt a cold touch of uncertainty. This was not how conquests were supposed to work. The primitive species was supposed to be destroyed quickly and efficiently, not whatever this was. Sir, the weapons officer called out, we're having trouble targeting the human ships. They're too small and too fast for our main guns, and they keep using our own ships as cover. What do you mean, using our ships as cover? They fly between our vessels, sir. If we fire at them, we risk hitting our own ships. This was another thing the humans had learned from studying alien technology. The Confederation had never fought an enemy that was willing to get close enough to use their own fleet as a shield. Every species they had conquered before had tried to fight at long range, where the aliens' superior firepower gave them an overwhelming advantage. Captain Harris dove his ship under the belly of an alien dreadnought, so close to the hull that he could see the individual armor plates. His weapons officer, Corporal Jenny Park, was firing constantly at specific points that Dr. Foster had identified as critical system junctions. Got another one, Park shouted. Their port side sensor. Cluster is offline. Good work. Kim, how are the others doing? Wolfpack is reporting 70% mission success, but we've lost 8 ships. The aliens are starting to adapt to our tactics. Harris had expected this. The surprise wouldn't last forever. All ships, this is Wolf Leader. Begin Phase 2. Phase 2 was even crazier than Phase 1. Instead of continuing to attack, the human ships suddenly accelerated away from the alien fleet at maximum speed, heading in all directions. They're running! Battle Leader Corks announced with satisfaction. The cowards are fleeing! Pursue them, Thakmor ordered. Destroy them all! But as the alien ships began to chase the scattering human vessels, they made a critical mistake. In their eagerness to finish off what they saw as a defeated enemy, they broke formation and spread out across a wide area of space. That was exactly what Admiral Carter had been waiting for. All stations, Carter's voice echoed through hidden bases across the solar system. The guests have taken the bait. Begin Phase 3. Suddenly, space around the scattered Confederation ships erupted with weapons fire from directions the aliens hadn't even known to watch. Hidden bases on moons, inside asteroids, and on supposedly abandoned space stations opened fire simultaneously. But these weren't the small hit-and-run attacks from Phase 2. These were massive, concentrated barrages from weapons that the aliens had never seen before, weapons designed by humans who had spent 3 months studying alien technology and figuring out how to kill it. War Prime! Velneth's voice was high with panic. We're under attack from multiple directions. The humans have bases everywhere. Thackmore stared at his tactical display in disbelief. Red symbols representing human weapons were appearing all over the screen, in locations his intelligence had assured him were empty space. How is this possible? Our scans showed no major installations. Sir, I think we only saw what they wanted us to see. For the first time in his long military career, War Prime Thackmore realized he might be in a real fight. Fleet Master Korthval received the emergency transmission from War Prime Thackmore, while his reinforcement fleet was still 3 days away from Earth. The message was brief, desperate, and completely unexpected. Fleet Master, the humans are not what we thought. Request immediate reinforcement. Repeat, request immediate reinforcement. Korthval, a massive creature whose species had conquered star systems before humans had discovered fire, stared at the communication with 4 different kinds of confusion. His purple-scaled face showed an expression that no Confederation officer had worn in over 1,000 years. Concern. Communications Officer Zethmar, replay that message, he commanded. Fleet Master, the message is clear. War Prime Thackmore is requesting assistance against the humans. That is impossible. Battle Fleet 7 was designed to conquer entire star systems. How can a single primitive world require reinforcement? But even as he spoke, more messages were arriving from the Earth system. Ship damage reports, casualty lists, tactical analyses that made no sense. According to the data, the humans were not only fighting back, but they were winning individual battles. Increase speed to maximum, Korthval ordered. And send a message to the Council. Tell them the human situation may be more complicated than anticipated. On Earth, the mood in the underground command centers was a mixture of celebration and growing dread. The surprise attacks had worked better than anyone had dared hope, but everyone knew this was just the beginning. Major Katie Brooks stood in the ruins of what had once been Luna City, humanity's largest settlement on the moon. The Confederation's response to the successful human attacks had been swift and brutal. Unable to find the hidden military bases, they had turned their weapons on civilian targets. How many? She asked her communications officer, Sergeant Mike Chen. Current count is 200,000 dead, ma'am. Luna City, New Geneva Colony, and the civilian sections of Mars Station 3. Katie felt her hands shake with rage she had never experienced before. She had been a soldier for 15 years, but this was different. This was murder, pure and simple. Patch me through to Earth Command, she said quietly. Ma'am, Earth Command is Admiral Carter, and he's in a meeting with... I don't care if he's having dinner with the President. Patch me through now. When Admiral Carter's face appeared on her screen, Katie could see that he had already heard the news. His usually calm expression was replaced by something that reminded her of old pictures of generals from humanity's most terrible wars. Major Brooks, I know what you're going to ask, and the answer is yes. Sir, Protocol Fury is authorized, all restrictions are lifted, no rules of engagement except one, make them pay. Katie felt a cold smile cross her face. Understood, sir. Broadcasting authorization now. Across the solar system, the message went out to every human military unit, every hidden base, every ship that had been holding back, waiting for permission to unleash humanity's true capacity for warfare. The aliens. had just made the mistake that every empire in human history had eventually made. They had attacked civilians thinking it would break human morale. Instead, they had just made humans angry. Dr. Amy Foster was in her laboratory deep beneath the Rocky Mountains when the authorization came through. She looked up from her work, where she had been developing what she politely called biological warfare applications, but privately thought of as revenge. "Finally," she said to her assistant, Dr. Frank Moore, "upload the Pandora files to all combat units. It's time to show our guests what humans do to species that murder children." What the Confederation didn't know was that Dr. Foster's team had been analyzing alien biology from the moment first contact was made. Every sample they could gather, every scan they could take, every breath the aliens had taken in human presence had been studied, cataloged, and weaponized. The aliens thought superior technology guaranteed victory. They were about to learn that humans had turned warfare into a science long before they had learned to travel between stars. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Clark received the Protocol Fury authorization while his squadron was hiding in the shadow of Saturn's rings. His 50 ships were part of what the aliens thought was the main human fleet, the obvious target they were supposed to find and destroy. "All ships, this is Ghost Leader," he transmitted on a frequency the aliens couldn't detect. "The kids are off. Time to show these monsters what humans really fight like." His ships were small, fast, and built for exactly one purpose: to get close enough to alien vessels to deliver payloads that would make the aliens wish they had never heard of humanity. "Sir," his weapons officer, Lieutenant Paula Torres, called out, "I'm detecting the Confederation reinforcement fleet. Looks like another 100 ships." "Good," Clark said grimly. "More targets. Begin approach. Remember, people, we're not trying to win a clean fight anymore. We're trying to make them hurt so bad they never come back. On the alien flagship War Prime." Thakamore was beginning to understand that he had walked into something far worse than a simple conquest. His fleet had lost 30 ships to human attacks, and the humans seemed to be getting stronger, not weaker. "War Prime," Velneth reported. "The reinforcement fleet has arrived, but there's something you should know." "What now?" "The humans have changed their tactics. They're no longer trying to disable our ships. They're trying to kill them." "Explain." "The attacks we're receiving now are different. More focused. More personal. It's as if they've learned exactly how to hurt us, and they're doing it deliberately." Thackmore felt a chill run down his armored spine. "Show me." The tactical display showed the most recent human attack. Instead of the hit-and-run raids they had been using before, the humans were now targeting specific systems in ways that caused maximum casualties. Life support failures, gravity system overloads, atmosphere poisoning. They're not just trying to win, Thackmore realized. They're trying to make us suffer. War Prime, there's more. We've detected biological agents in the atmosphere of ships that have been boarded, some kind of toxin that specifically targets Confederation species. Biological warfare? But that's barbaric. Sir, I'm receiving reports that the agents seem designed for each of our species individually. Whatever is killing our Zephyrian crew members doesn't affect the Delph or Corinthian species, and vice versa. Thackmore stared at the reports with growing horror. They've created specific biological weapons for each of our species. How is that possible? What he didn't know was that Dr. Foster's team had been working around the clock since the alien attack, on civilian targets. Every DNA sample, every atmospheric reading, every biological trace the aliens had left during their initial visits had been analyzed and turned into targeted weapons. The humans weren't just fighting a war anymore. They were conducting an extermination. Fleetmaster Korthval arrived in the Earth system to find his reinforcement fleet walking into a nightmare. The humans had stopped trying to fight like a conventional military and started fighting like an infestation. "What is the tactical situation?" he demanded as soon as his ship was in communication range. "Fleetmaster." Thakmor's voice came through, filled with something Korthval had never heard from a Confederation officer before: fear. "The humans are using weapons we don't understand. Tactics we've never seen. They're not fighting to win. Territory or resources. They're fighting to kill us all." Impossible. No species fights with such ferocity. "Fleetmaster, they've poisoned 3 of my ships. The crew died in agony over several hours. They've boarded others and left them drifting with no survivors. They've turned our own technology against us in ways our engineers say should be impossible." Korthval looked at his tactical display, trying to understand what he was seeing. According to the reports, human forces were somehow everywhere and nowhere at once. They would appear, strike with devastating effect, then vanish before retaliation was possible. "How many ships have we lost?" 63 confirmed destroyed, 22 missing and presumed destroyed, 47 damaged but operational. Out of 300 ships? "Fleetmaster, we've been here for 6 days. For the first time in his 500-year military career, Fleetmaster Korthval felt something he had no name for. Later, human psychologists would identify it as the emotion humans called dread, the growing certainty that something terrible was about to happen and there was nothing you could do to stop it. "Sir," his intelligence officer reported, "we're receiving a transmission from the human leadership." "Put it through!" Admiral Carter's face appeared on the screen, and Korthval was surprised by what he saw. The human didn't look angry or desperate. He looked calm, professional, and absolutely certain. "Fleetmaster Korthval, I am Admiral Lisa. Carter of the Earth Defense Force, I have a message for you and your fleet. Speak. You attacked our civilians. You murdered our children. You thought this would make us surrender." Carter paused, and when she spoke again, her voice was as cold as space itself. "You were wrong. We are no longer trying to defend ourselves. We are now trying to exterminate you. Leave our system now, or we will kill every single one of you." The transmission ended, leaving the alien command bridge in silence. "Fleetmaster," Thakmor's voice came through the communication system. "What are your orders?" The pursuit of the fleeing Confederation fleet became a master class in human tactical adaptation. Commander Sarah Mitchell, now promoted to admiral and given command of the chase fleet, had studied the alien retreat patterns and realized something crucial. The Confederation had never learned how to run away properly because they had never needed to. "They're making every mistake in the book," she reported to Admiral Carter via quantum communication. "They're staying in formation, following predictable routes, and trying to maintain command structure even while fleeing. It's like they read a manual on how to be chased." 3 light years from Earth, the human pursuit fleet caught up with the rear guard of Confederation ships. What happened next would be remembered as the Battle of the Running Stars, though calling it a battle was generous to the aliens. Captain Danny Rodriguez, leading a squadron of the new human attack ships, watched as his prey tried to turn and fight. "You know what the problem is with having superior technology?" he asked his weapons officer, Lieutenant Susan Wright. "What's that, sir?" "You forget how to think when it doesn't work." The Confederation ships were still trying to fight the way they always had, long-range engagements with massive energy weapons, but the human ships were designed for exactly this situation. They closed distance rapidly, used the alien ship's own mass as cover, and struck at systems the aliens couldn't afford to lose. "Target their jump drives first," Rodriguez ordered. "If they can't run, they have to fight. And if they have to fight, we win." War Prime Thakmor, commanding the rear guard, watched his tactical display with growing despair. The human ships were doing something that should have been impossible. They were learning faster than his crews could adapt. "They're using our own tactics against us," his tactical officer reported. "Every maneuver we attempt, they counter it before we complete it." "How is that possible?" "Sir, I think they've been recording every engagement. They know how we fight better than we do." This was exactly what had happened. Every human ship was equipped with learning computers that analyzed alien tactics in real time. More importantly, every lesson learned by one human ship was instantly shared with all the others. Fleet Master Korthval, still trying to maintain some semblance of command authority, received the final transmission from Thakmor's rear guard. "Fleet Master, we cannot hold them. The humans are. They're not fighting like any species we've encountered. They're fighting like they've been studying us for years." "How many ships do we have left?" "Sir, best estimate is 140. Ships still capable of jump travel. We've lost over half the fleet." "In how long?" 2 weeks, sir." Korthval felt something that human psychologists would identify as a complete mental breakdown. His species had conquered the galaxy over the course of millennia. The humans had destroyed half his fleet in 2 weeks. "Sir," his communications officer interrupted. "We're receiving a transmission from the human fleet." "Put it through." Admiral Mitchell's face appeared on the screen, and Korthval was struck by how different she looked from the desperate humans he had expected to find. Mitchell looked confident, professional, and utterly certain of victory. "Fleet Master Korthval, this is Admiral Sarah Mitchell of the Earth Pursuit Fleet. I have an offer for you." "What kind of offer?" "Surrender now, and we'll let some of your crews live. Continue running, and we'll hunt you down ship by ship until there's nothing left of your fleet but debris." "You cannot be serious. You are one species fighting the entire Confederation." Mitchell smiled, and Korthval realized that the expression looked nothing like friendliness. "Fleet Master, let me explain something about humans that your intelligence files apparently missed. When someone attacks our home, we don't just fight back. We make sure it never happens again." "What do you mean?" "I mean that we're not going to stop with your fleet. We're going to follow you home. We're going to find your homeworlds, and we're going to make sure that every species in the Confederation understands exactly what happens when you threaten Earth." The transmission ended, leaving the alien command bridge in stunned silence. But Admiral Mitchell wasn't bluffing. Deep in the hidden laboratories of the human fleet, Dr. Amy Foster was working on something that would change galactic warfare forever. Using captured alien technology, her team had developed faster-than-light communication systems that could reach across vast distances instantly. "Frank," she called to her assistant, "send the data package to Earth. Let them know what we've found." "Yes, ma'am. Should I include the biological analysis?" "Especially that. Earth Command needs to know that we can now target any species in the Confederation specifically. What Dr. Foster had discovered was that each alien species had unique biological markers that could be exploited. More importantly, she had found the locations of the Confederation homeworlds in the captured navigation computers. Chief Engineer Tony Davis was having similar success with alien technology. His engineering teams had reverse-engineered Confederation, jump drives, weapon systems, and manufacturing techniques in a matter of days. "How is this possible?" asked his deputy, Lisa Park. "This technology should take years to understand." Lisa, that's the difference between humans and everyone else. They spend centuries perfecting their technology and then never change it. We spend a few days figuring out how it works, then we make it better. The proof was in the ships being produced by the human fleet's mobile factories. Using captured alien technology and human engineering principles, they were building vessels that were superior to Confederation ships in every measurable way. But the real breakthrough came when Captain Ben Harris, leading a boarding team onto a captured Confederation command ship, discovered something that changed everything. "Admiral Mitchell," he transmitted, "you need to see this." "What did you find, Captain?" "Sir, their entire command structure is automated. These ships don't just work together, they're controlled by a central artificial intelligence. So, if we can hack their AI, we can take control of their entire fleet." The alien command systems had been designed for a galaxy where no one had ever thought to question their authority. Security was focused on preventing external attacks, not internal subversion. To human computer specialists who had grown up fighting hackers and cyber warfare, the alien systems were laughably vulnerable. Lieutenant Colonel Mary Chen, Earth's leading cyber warfare expert, took one look at the Confederation command protocols and started laughing. "Admiral, this is going to be easier than I thought. Their security is designed to prevent unauthorized commands, but it assumes that anyone with access codes must be legitimate. Can you break it? Break it? Ma'am, I can own it. Give me 6 hours and I'll have command authority over their entire fleet." 6 hours later, the impossible happened. Human technicians took control of the Confederation fleet's command systems and began issuing orders that the alien crews, trained to obey their computers without question, followed automatically. Fleet Master Korth Val was in his quarters when his ship suddenly changed course without orders. "Navigation report! Why are we turning around?" "Sir, the navigation computer is following fleet orders to return to the human system. I gave no such orders." "Sir, the orders came from Fleet Command Authority Level 1. I cannot override them without authorization from the Council itself." On the bridge of her flagship, Admiral Mitchell watched as the entire Confederation fleet began turning around and heading back toward Earth. She opened a communication channel to the alien vessels. "Fleet Master Korth Val, this is Admiral Mitchell. As you can see, we now control your ships. You have two options: surrender and live, or keep fighting and watch as we use your own vessels to destroy you." "This is impossible. How did you gain access to our command systems?" "The same way we've done everything else in this war, Fleet Master. We learned how your technology works, and then we used it better than you do." The final blow came when the human fleet arrived at the Confederation's rally point near Proxima Centauri. Instead of the desperate last stand the aliens had expected, they found something far worse: a trap. Hidden human forces that had been following the alien retreat for weeks suddenly revealed themselves. The Confederation fleet found itself surrounded by enemies using their own technology against them, commanded by humans who now understood their tactics better than they did themselves. "All Confederation vessels," Admiral Mitchell broadcast, "this is your final warning. Surrender now, or be destroyed. You have 60 seconds to decide." On his flagship, Fleet Master Korth Val looked around at his command crew. These were officers who had conquered star systems, who had never known defeat, who had believed themselves to be the apex of galactic civilization. Now they looked like frightened children. "Sir," Velneth said quietly, "what are your orders?" Korth Val stared at the tactical display showing his fleet surrounded by enemies who had learned to fight better than his people in a matter of weeks. He thought about the billions of civilians on Confederation worlds who would die if this war continued. He thought about the human promise to hunt them across the galaxy. Most of all, he thought about the terrible certainty that humanity was just getting started. "Signal surrender to all ships," he said finally. "This war is over." But as he gave the order, Korthval couldn't help but wonder if the real war. The turning point came when the Confederation made their final fatal mistake. In their desperation to break human resistance, they decided to target Earth's historical monuments and cultural sites. Fleetmaster Korthval, believing that destroying humanity's past would crush their spirit, ordered the bombardment of museums, libraries, and ancient landmarks. The first target was the Smithsonian Institution in Washington. The plasma bombardment turned thousands of years of human history into glowing ash in seconds. Next came the Louvre, then the British Museum, then the Library of Alexandria's rebuilt archives. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Clark watched from his hidden position in the asteroid belt as humanity's cultural treasures burned. He had been a history teacher before joining the military, and seeing those irreplaceable artifacts destroyed triggered something primal in his mind. "Ghost Squadron," he transmitted to his ships. "New mission parameters. We are no longer bound by any restrictions whatsoever. These aliens want to erase our history? Let's erase them instead." What happened next would later be studied by military historians as the moment when humanity stopped pretending to fight a civilized war and started fighting like humans. Hidden shipyards that the aliens had never detected suddenly came online throughout the outer solar system. Facilities that had been disguised as mining operations or research stations revealed their true purpose: mass production of weapons designed by humans who were no longer interested in following galactic conventions of warfare. Tony Davis, Earth's chief engineer, stood in the control room of Factory Complex 7, built inside a hollowed-out asteroid beyond Pluto's orbit. Around him, automated systems were producing ships at a rate that would have seemed impossible to alien observers. "How many are we up to now?" asked his assistant, Karen Bell. 2,000 combat units completed, with 500 rolling off the production lines every day," Tony replied. "The aliens think they're fighting 50 ships. They're about to meet 2,000. But these weren't the small, nimble craft that had been harassing the Confederation fleet. These were something entirely new. Vessels designed by engineers who had studied every weakness in alien technology and built ships specifically to exploit those weaknesses. "Sir," Karen said, looking at her display, "we're getting reports from the other facilities. The Biological Warfare Division has finished their work." Tony nodded grimly. Dr. Foster's team had created something that violated every treaty humanity had ever signed about biological weapons. But then again, humanity had never been in a war for species survival before. "Send the deployment order. It's time to show our guests what human creativity really looks like." On the Confederation flagship, Fleetmaster Korthval was studying reports that made no sense. His sensors were detecting massive energy signatures from regions of space that his intelligence had assured him were empty. "Velneth, explain these readings to me." Intelligence Officer Velneth's tentacles moved nervously over her controls. "Fleetmaster, it appears the humans have been hiding industrial facilities throughout their solar system. Large-scale manufacturing. Operations. Manufacturing what? Unknown, sir. But the energy consumption suggests they're producing something in massive quantities." "How did we miss this?" "Sir, I believe they've been planning this war since the moment we made first contact. Everything we've seen, everything we thought we understood about their capabilities, has been carefully designed to make us underestimate them." Korthval felt his confidence cracking like ice under pressure. "Are you telling me that this entire war has been a deception?" "Sir, I think this entire war has been a trap." Before Velneth could elaborate, Alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The tactical display erupted with new contacts, hundreds of them approaching from every direction. "What am I looking at?" Korthval demanded. "Ships, Fleet Master, human ships, more than we ever detected before." "How many more?" "Sir, over 2,000 and still increasing." For a moment, the alien command bridge was completely silent. Then Battle Leader Korks spoke in a voice that shook with disbelief. 2,000 ships? Where did they come from?" Lieutenant Commander Clark led the first wave of the new human fleet. His ship was unlike anything the aliens had seen before. Larger than the hit-and-run craft, but still much smaller than Confederation vessels. More importantly, it was armed with weapons that human engineers had spent months perfecting. "All ships, this is Ghost Leader," he transmitted. "Remember, we're not here to disable or capture. We're here to kill. These aliens wanted to see human warfare. Let's show them what we've learned from 10,000 years of fighting each other." The human ships moved with coordination that seemed impossible for vessels of their size. They flew in patterns that confused alien targeting systems, used gravitational fields to slingshot around planets at impossible speeds, and attacked with weapons that seemed to violate the laws of physics. "They're using our own gravitational manipulators against us," reported the alien weapons officer. "They're bending space to redirect our attacks back at us." "Impossible. Their technology couldn't replicate our gravity control systems." "Sir, they're not replicating them. They're hijacking them. They found a way to take control of our own equipment and turn it against us." This was Dr. Foster's work. Her team had discovered that alien technology relied heavily on quantum entanglement for communication and control. By introducing carefully designed interference patterns, human ships could temporarily take control of alien systems, but the technological warfare was only part of the human assault. The real horror began when the biological weapons were deployed. "Fleet Master!" Velneth's voice was high with panic. "We're receiving distress calls from across the fleet. Ships are reporting crew deaths from unknown pathogens. How is that possible? We're in space." "Sir, the pathogens appear to be designed to survive in vacuum. They're being delivered by micro-drones too small for our sensors to detect." What the aliens didn't know was that humanity had weaponized their own immune systems. Dr. Foster's team had created microscopic machines that could identify alien DNA and release targeted toxins. Each species in the Confederation was dying from a different bioweapon, perfectly designed to kill them and only them. Commander Sarah Mitchell, a former CIA operative who had been placed in charge of psychological warfare, was monitoring alien communications from her hidden base on Europa. What she was hearing told her that the psychological aspects of their campaign were working perfectly. "They're starting to panic," she reported to Admiral Carter. "Alien crews are refusing to board ships. Some of their captains are requesting permission to retreat." "Good. What about their command structure?" "Breaking down. They've never faced an enemy that could adapt this quickly. Every tactic they try, we have a counter for. Every weakness they expose, we exploit immediately." This was the crucial difference between humanity and every other species the Confederation had conquered. Other species fought wars the way they had always fought them. Humans learned. On the flagship, War Prime Thakmor was experiencing something no Confederation officer had ever felt: the absolute certainty of defeat. "Fleet Master," he transmitted to Korthval. "Request permission to begin withdrawal." "Withdrawal? We outnumber them." "Sir, numbers don't matter anymore. They're killing us faster than we can kill them. They've turned this into a type of warfare we don't understand." "Explain." "Sir, they're not trying to win territory or force surrender. They're trying to make sure we never come back. Every ship they capture, they study. Every weapon we use, they improve. Every tactic we employ, they counter and then use against us. Korthval looked at his tactical display. In the 6 hours since the new human fleet had arrived, the Confederation had lost over 100 ships. Not disabled, destroyed. The humans were taking no prisoners and offering no quarter. Sir, Velneth added, we're also receiving reports of something else. The humans appear to be enjoying this. What do you mean? Their communications intercepts show them celebrating kills, sir. They're not fighting reluctantly or defensively. They're fighting with enthusiasm. Fleetmaster Korthval stared at the display showing the systematic destruction of his fleet and realized something that would haunt him for the rest of his life. The humans weren't just good at warfare. They loved it. All ships, he finally commanded, begin withdrawal from the system. Sir? Thakmore's voice carried relief and confusion. We're retreating? We're not retreating, War Prime. We're running. There's a difference. As the Confederation fleet began its desperate flight, from Earth, Lieutenant Commander Clark led his squadron in pursuit. But instead of simply chasing them out of the system, the humans had one more surprise. Ghost Squadron, this is Earth Command. Admiral Carter's voice came through the communication system. New orders. Follow them home, sir. You heard me? Commander, follow them home. Find out where they come from, because this war isn't over until we're sure they'll never come back. As the human fleet began its pursuit of the fleeing aliens, Clark couldn't help but smile. The Confederation had wanted to conquer humanity. Instead, they had created something far worse. Humans who now knew they could win wars against species with superior technology.